The next person I have to introduce is Doug Grunn. I met Doug Grunn in a parade in Newark in 1973 when I was with a small corps of the Crusaders. Him and his brother Steve, aka Stove, were watching us and they decided that they wanted to join that drum corps. He came into the corps, he was a fantastic member, he and his brother. The one thing is he became our instructor later on when he went on to this corps called the Sunrisers that John Aratano was taking everybody over to. The one thing I know about Doug is when you were marched with him or you were taught by him, you had to be there, you had to be on time, and you really had to know your stuff. He was the best person to be friends with when you did that, and your worst enemy when you didn't. So eventually I left the drum corps that I was in. Just all happened in one weekend when he said, come on, listen to the Sunrisers. It's 1980. And Doug was there from 76 to up to 79, and he had left the corps. I got a soprano. I went over, we were going to just listen to the corps. And he goes, do you want to do everything else, or do you want to just get the horn right now? So I go, yeah, let's get the horn. They go over and they say, you have to go over and sit next to somebody. Okay, right over there. Next to Doug. Again, we marched for years together, and he was a great horn player. You always had to be there, you had to be on time, and you had to know your stuff, or you're a dead man. But Doug went on, once he left the Sunrisers in 1982, or after the 82 season. He met his wife in the drum corps. They've had a happy family since. He also spent a lot of time doing reenacting for Civil War. And he was admitted into the Bugle Hall of Fame recently, where he proudly represented the Sunrisers in that event. And so I bring to you, in the Sunrisers Hall of Fame, Doug Grunn.
It's so quiet for
Nice hat. Here, doctor.
In the 1976 tour, we wore these exactly once. And I was at the Rocky Point Parade in Long Island for the St. Patrick's Day Parade. And that's where we got a chance to see just how freaking big we really were. Thank God we only wore these once. In 1975, Lenny Herring gave me a call on Thanksgiving Day weekend and asked me, what are you doing this weekend? I said, not much, just hanging out. He goes, want to go to a party? And I was like, yeah, sure, okay. He goes, all right, I'll pick you up. He said, pack a bag. All right. So sure enough, late in the afternoon, he picked me up, and off we went to a party. Little did I know that the Picard, now I lived in Northwest New Jersey, little did I know that the party was in Poughkeepsie, New York, at Jackie Tassinelli's house. So after ingesting some questionable substances on the ride up, we finally got to Jackie's house and went inside to a house full of rather happy Sunrisers. And Lenny promptly decided to take a nap on the couch, leaving me alone with all these maniacs. Needless to say, by the time Sunday came along, we made our way down to Brooklyn, where the corps is practicing, and sat in at a rehearsal at the school just down from the Brooklyn Post. Somebody handed me a soprano horn and said, here, why don't you sit in line for a while? So I did. I sat in between Mike Hart and Mike Fusco, and we were learning Procession of the Nobles. At that time, I was still in junior corps. I was in the Sacred Heart Crusaders in Manville, to which at least 11 horn players came from to march with the Sunrisers. And that Tuesday, I walked into John Lecko's office, the director of Manville. I said, John, I'm leaving the corps. I was already over age. He says, I don't know how he's going to hire a lead solo soprano. And, you know, what? And so he says, well, what are you going to do? I said, I'm joining the senior corps. So he looks at me and he goes, well, what corps are you going to? I said, I'm going to join the Sunrisers. So he kind of made a fist. He goes, oh, man. He goes, why don't you join a real good corps? I said, like what? He goes, like the Skyliners. I was like, no, I'll be sticking with the Sunrisers. Thank you very much. All the rest is history. And from 76, 77, 80, 81, 82, and 93, it has been my honor and my pleasure to march with not one of the finest drum corps in the world, but the finest drum corps in the world. I remember when I was a kid sitting home watching Thanksgiving Day Parade, Thanksgiving Day, and seeing the Sunrisers in the Macy's Day Parade, and watching them come around the corner, playing procession, of course, theme song. I'm thinking, you know what? These guys really got their shit together, and they really did. Again, finished my career in 1982. During the 82 season, met a little girl who marched in the Corps in 76 and 77 and came back in 82, Anne-Marie Diamond, now Anne-Marie Grunn, who has been my wife now for 42 years. And after 82, we decided to leave the Corps, got married in 1984, raised a family. Our son Gregory lives out in the Reading area. And in 1995, we got involved in Civil War reenacting. I don't know why, but we did. And stayed with that activity for another 25 years, during which time I went back into bugling. And in 2004, I was named as principal musician and chief musician for the Mifflin Guard, the Civil War battalion to which we belong. And during that time, I disorganized the old Mifflin Guard fife and drum and reformed into the Mifflin Guard field music, utilizing a 4-man bugle line playing the Voss bugle marches. We're the only Civil War fife reenactment field music to use that, put in a bugle line. And in very short order, we became known as having the finest buglers in the Civil War activity. One of which came to the 150th Gettysburg reenactment and actually drove his car across country from California, and a gentleman by the name of Mr. Frank Doherty showed up in his BMW at the reenactment, and sure, come on, fall in with us. Had a great time, and we were known, like I said, throughout the entire hobby as having the finest buglers in the activity. Just last year, or just this year in April, I was named to the Buglers Hall of Fame, I guess for my efforts in Civil War bugling and for being in the Sunrisers, and a true honor. And during the individual and ensemble competition, I wore Sunriser orange and white tunic, and I played the Dvorak's second movement from the New World called Going Home, and dedicated to the life and memory of Pete China. And received a lot of good compliments from that event. And next year I'm going back to play again and to win this time, playing Jupiter from the Planets, another Sunriser too. So watch out for that. So I'd like to thank John Clower for the nomination, thank the committee for nominating me for this position. It is my honor and my pleasure, and thank you all, and long live the Sunrisers.